Not only we can run exploits from Armitage, but we can also log into the target system if there are services that allow logins, such as FTP, SSH, etc. So for example, let's say the target has the MySQL service running. So I'll just right click on the target, go to login, go to MySQL and click on it. And if I have the correct credentials, the correct username and password, I would be able to log into the MySQL database using Armitage. So let me put in root as username and I'll leave the password as blank and I'll click on launch. Now this is going to fail because blank is not accepted as a password here. But what I wanted you to see is this. The auxiliary scanner MySQL login. And this is what I was referring to when we were talking about different modules. So for example, this is an auxiliary module that allows me to scan MySQL databases and try a set of usernames and passwords to see if I'm able to successfully log in to any of the databases with given credentials. In other words, let's say I have 100 servers and the 100 servers have the MySQL service running on them. I have a set of usernames and passwords and I want to check if this username and password is going to allow me to log in to any of the 100 MySQL servers. Instead of doing this manually or writing my own script, I can use the auxiliary module to do a quick scan on the 100 MySQL databases using a given username and a password, and then the auxiliary scanner module of Metasploit will attempt to log into these servers one by one, and if successful, it'll come back and tell me I managed to log into XYZ servers. This is one of the many auxiliary modules that exist in Metasploit. Now, as you can see here, Armitage went ahead and set up the parameters of the scanner. So it set the user as pass, which means use the same user as the password as false. It says blank password no. It set the username as root, the port, which is the default MySQL port, etc. And then it ran the scanner. As expected, it failed to log in, but this is fine. I wasn't expecting it to successfully log in. All I wanted you to see is one auxiliary module. So now you know what I'm talking about when I say an auxiliary module in Metasploit. Let me show you another way we can automate exploits, and this is a really terrible way to do things, but unfortunately I've seen some pen testers do that, which I am definitely against. I'm going to show this to you just for fun, but please never ever do this in a professional engagement. So as you can see here, if I click on the exploits menu, I have a list of all the exploits that are present in the database of Metasploit. Everything that affects all the operating systems, AIX, Android, Apple, Unix, Windows, Linux, etc. So let's say I have a ProFTP server that I want to target. I'll go ahead and search for ProFTPD and I'll find one under Unix FTP and ProFTPD version 133C backdoor. Now if I right click on this, I get a one item menu that says relevant targets. Let me click on relevant targets. And notice what happens. Immediately the target in the middle disappeared. And now all I have in my menu is all the targets that I can target using this exploit, because Armitage thinks that these two are targets that the exploit might work against. I'll click on OK. And now all I have to do is go back and right click on the target, attack, FTP, and click the ProFTPD exploit. I can change the port to port 2121 because this is what Nmap told me. And I'll run the exploit. So the exploit runs, comes back and says the exploit is not successful, and I can move on to the next target, right click, attack, FTP, ProFTPD, launch the attack, wait for the result, which will come back with failure because the service is not exploitable. So this is really a very primitive way of doing penetration testing. Just because I have an FTP service running, without me checking what service exactly it is, what version it is it vulnerable or not, is it exploitable or not, all I'm doing is I'm picking an exploit, assuming that all the Linux targets, just because they're Linux targets, are affected by this, and then I'm running it against all these targets one by one, hoping for the best. This is one of the worst ways to do a penetration test. This is something that you would never ever want to do because it is almost guaranteed to always backfire and bite you in the backside. You're gonna end up pissing people off, annoying your client, and probably getting a big fat warning from your manager. I just wanted you to see this as one example of the things that you shouldn't be doing. Having said that, again, I re-emphasize that Armitage can be very useful when automating certain attacks only if you know what you're doing. So I hope with this video, you have a much better idea of what Armitage is. You know what you're doing because of all the things that we have been learning so far and because of the things that you will be continuing to learn throughout these videos. And when you come across a situation that you deem fit, please, by all means, use Armitage, take screenshots, show the client, because it does make for very impressive screenshots. All right, go ahead and play around with Armitage for a while. And when you're ready, let's move on to the next section.